Hey everybody, welcome back to the Reclamation Podcast, where our goal is to help you reclaim good practices for life and leadership in Christ. If we haven't met yet, my name is Tony and I am your host. I care deeply and passionately about helping you walk and live a life of integrity, fully integrating your life with Christ. So guys, today on the podcast, really big deal. Today is officially episode 300. It's wild to think how many years we've been doing this together. And if you're an OG podcast listener, if you've been here since, the early episodes where I had to beg my friends to come on the podcast, thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time. So today, for episode 300, I thought I would do something a little different. I thought it'd be a little personal. And this is the deeper dive. And at the deeper dive, we always do it 15 minutes or less, where I kind of take one thing from the episode this week and kind of riff on it, right? So just go a little deeper. Adam Jablin was an excellent interview, and I loved the conversation with him so much. One of the things that he talked about was his mask, always being positive about what it meant to show up every day and smile even when he wasn't feeling it. And so today I thought I would share with you a little bit of behind the scenes here. What have I learned in 300 episodes? What are some of my takeaways so far? I've done an episode like this similarly, and I always hear positive feedback about it. And my hope is that you might get to know me a little bit better, that we continue to grow in this journey together. You know, one of the things that I always think about when I think about identity is 2 Corinthians 5:16 and 17. It says, "So from now on, we regard no one from a worldly point of view. Though we once regarded Christ in this way, we do so no longer. Therefore, if anyone is in Christ, the new creation has come. The old is gone and the new is here." One of the things I love about podcasting and this journey of consistently showing up for you guys is that I am constantly being made new. I know that I'm a new creation in Christ, and because of that new creation, the revelation about who I was is no longer who I am. That God's promises are made new every day. And so here are some reflections on this journey of podcasting. 10 things I've learned about myself in 300 episodes. Number 10, it's impossible to over-prepare for a guest. It's impossible to over-prepare for a guest. One of the things I've learned in interviewing is that the more I know about the guest's life story, the more we can be friends faster. So if I know their story and their book, then it's really easy to jump in and out of where they have been, where they've gone, and maybe even where they're going. All right, so taking the time to really do the research online, to read the book, to go and look at the big picture of their work, you can see a lot from people who have consistently put their stuff online. And so over preparing for a guest oftentimes means that I have a page full of questions that we never get to, or there's parts of their stories that maybe we get to mine that just don't normally get asked in podcast interviews. I know you guys know this already, but one of the things that happens a lot in these kind of interviews is that people are out on tour, and because of the tour, they get asked the same questions all the time. So anytime I'm preparing for a guest, I really, really, really want to be original in my question asking, and I pray and hope that you see that. So that's number 1. It's impossible to over prepare for a guest. Number 2, I got this from one of my spiritual fathers, Chaplain Charles Causey, who's been on the podcast before. He said, "Miltonberger, your systems make you successful. Your systems make you successful." In the podcast world, there's this thing called pod fade. Pod fade is when somebody starts a podcast and then eventually it just fades away and just lives out there on the internet forever, but there's no new content. Pod fade happens because podcasters often don't have systems. Systems make you successful. And so I have to give a shout out to the 2 incredible people who make this system work. First, my amazing editor, Caleb Stanton, who's been with me so long. He has been like my right-hand man for years. He's an incredible audio engineer. He's an incredible worship leader, musician. I just absolutely appreciate everything he does to make this podcast great. The second one is newer to the team in the podcast world, and that's Nicole. Nicole Scrivener is my operations officer for Follow the Lead Coaching, and she does so much to help with the podcast. What she does is she actually makes sure that the guests have the links, that they have a checklist, that they're prepared. She takes care of all the little details. Why are both those people important? Because the more time I spend doing that stuff is less time that I can prepare for a guest. And so it's stuff that I'm not good at. I'm not really great at. I can do it, but one of the things I've learned is that the work that's hardest for me takes twice as long for the same result as work that I love. And so when we created a system that basically goes from pitch to recording to publish, wow, it just makes the job so much more enjoyable. All right, number 3, the best questions come from the best listening. No brainer here, but it's really easy, even in a podcast episode, to not really listen with your whole heart. And I know there's a lot of leaders out here that struggle because everything wants your attention. And so the best questions come from the best listening. When I can listen with my whole heart and kind of listen behind the scenes, do some spiritual listening, and that really makes a huge difference. All right, number 4. This one still makes me laugh, but I really do believe that it's impossible to be sure about what someone will like. You, my podcast family, there are episodes that you guys love, and then there are episodes that you don't listen to at all. I don't know what's going to take and what's not going to take. I don't have any concept on why something works or doesn't work. I just want to keep putting out content. And honestly, I keep putting it out for a very specific group of people. That's number 5, right? I want a podcast for the smallest audience. You may not know this, but there are 3 people that I podcast for every single time, right? It's the entrepreneur. It's the C-suite executive. It's the leader, the person who's leading in the church and leading at home. And in my head, I have 3 very specific avatars that I follow. And so I know that the best podcast episodes are for those 3 people. So number 4, it's impossible to be sure what someone will like. Number 5, podcasts for the smallest audience. And number 6, this is just me being really honest. Sometimes I care too much about how many downloads I think an episode will get. And when I do, I don't put out good content. If I'm chasing downloads, it never goes well. And listen, guys, I don't know how any of this works and why some episodes get huge and some episodes are small, and why I can't seem to break a certain number of downloads per month. Right now, there's anywhere between 1,500 and 3,000 people that download the podcast every single month, which is incredible, and I'm so thankful. And I'm also like, why haven't we busted above 3,000? Why hasn't this thing gone to the next level? Right, we should be pushing 5 or 10 in my head, but I don't know. I feel like I'm still putting out good content. Again, I don't know how any of it works, but what I do know is that if I chase downloads, I don't put out good content. So that's something I always have to do. I have to check my heart. All right, number 7. I love meeting new people. It's truly my most favorite part of putting out content is meeting new people. The authors, the entertainers, the speakers, the coaches, all of them. Man, I just love it. I love meeting new people. It's such a gift. You should start a podcast, whoever you are listening, you should start one just to meet all the new people. If you're somebody who likes chasing down curiosity and meeting new people, this is such a fun thing to do. All right, number 8. No matter how big the guest is, praying before the episode matters to both of us. No matter how big the guest is, praying before every episode matters to both of us. A lot of my guests are rushed. They're going from one podcast episode to the next. And one of the things I do before I hit record every single time is I always just say a quick prayer. I just want to surrender this whole thing to God. And that prayer matters so much to the guest and to me. It's really a reset. And sometimes when I'm really nervous about a guest, like I just want to do well, that prayer is about the only thing that gets started in a good way. That's number 8. Number 9, I got this from my podcasting friend, Ryan Hawk. Chase curiosity. If I'm curious about something, chances are good you'll be curious about it too. And that makes good content. Chasing curiosity is so much fun. And it's brought some guests on the podcast that I wouldn't have otherwise gotten. When you're in the podcast business long enough, you start to connect with incredible publicists. My friends over at Epic are awesome, and I love them. I'm so thankful for them. And they send guests, and sometimes guests are like right in my wheelhouse, and sometimes it's a little bit more of a stretch. And so in those moments, you really have to chase curiosity. And number 10, the last thing that I've learned and continue to remind myself every single time I hit record. This is God's podcast. I'm just called to manage it for a season. I really want it to be this honoring thing to God. I want it to move people closer to Jesus, to help people learn about what it means to lean into spiritual disciplines and live a life that's full of integrity, integrated in faith and life. When I live out that purpose, I feel most fulfilled in the work that I get to do here, in coaching, and everything. Man, I just want you to be closer to Jesus. I want to be closer to Jesus. Because when we move closer to Jesus, everything changes. Well, guys, that's it. Episode 300, a deeper dive. There's a look behind the curtain about how I'm wired. You kind of get a feel for it a little bit there. 10 things I've learned about myself in 300 episodes. I'm so thankful for each and every one of you. Thanks for being on this journey. I appreciate you so much. And every time you share the podcast, it's like saying thanks to me. And I appreciate you for that. So, thank you. Here's to 300 more. And remember, if you want to follow Jesus, you must be willing to move.